Welcome to Reno's World Podcast, where truth and myth collide, and every story gets a deep dive. I'm your host, Reno Rains, your guide through the unknown. Tonight's topic, Project Pegasus. We're exploring the strange, the mysterious, and the downright unbelievable. And just so you know, we play an old movie to give you something to look at because, well, this is a podcast and we like to keep things interesting. So sit back, relax, and let's unravel tonight's tale. The room is dark, the air thick with the hum of ancient machinery, a hum that reverberates through your chest as though the walls themselves are alive with electricity. In front of you stands a child, barely more than 7 years old, a nervousness in his eyes that's impossible to ignore. This is Andrew Basiago, and he's about to step into the unknown. But this is no ordinary boy, and the world he's about to enter is no ordinary world. What Basiago will claim years later is that he was part of something beyond imagination, something so profound it would alter the course of human history. It is 1968. The government, in its quest for dominance and an edge over the enemy, has turned to the impossible, time travel and teleportation. Under the guise of a top-secret program known as Project Pegasus, Basiago was recruited, his life irrevocably changed by a secret that would follow him for decades. As a child, Basiago had no idea what was coming. His father, Raymond Basiago, a microelectronics engineer with connections to the highest echelons of the government, introduced him to the classified world of DARPA, where the impossible was made real. This world, hidden in plain sight, relied on groundbreaking technology that had been secretly pioneered by none other than Nikola Tesla himself. Tesla's theories on time, space, and energy would form the cornerstone of Project Pegasus, a program that aimed not just to study these phenomena, but to harness them. Imagine a machine, powerful and sleek, humming with the energy of 1,000 volts, capable of bending the very fabric of time. This was the chronovisor, an invention that allowed its users not only to see through time, but to become part of it. Basiago's first experience with the chronovisor is nothing short of otherworldly. He describes the room in which it was housed, dimly lit, the walls lined with intricate equipment, cables running like veins beneath the floor, and a vast screen that flickers to life as if alive. The air crackles with tension like the moment before a thunderstorm, and then, in an instant, the past unfurls before him. He sees Abraham Lincoln, standing tall on the steps of the Capitol, delivering the Gettysburg Address. But what makes it so chilling isn't just the sight, it's the feeling. Basiago claims to have been there, in the crowd, watching history unfold with his own eyes. A child who, in that moment, wasn't just witnessing the past, but living it. His memory of the event is sharp. The smell of fresh-cut grass, the murmur of the crowd, the sound of Lincoln's voice, booming with a sense of urgency that echoes through time. And as the scene flickers and fades, Basiago finds himself pulled back into the present, the hum of the chronovisor fading into silence. But it doesn't end there. The truth of Project Pegasus wasn't just about witnessing the past. It was about bending time itself. Teleportation, Basiago insists, was another key component of the project. It wasn't science fiction, it was real. Basiago describes stepping into a teleportation chamber, stepping onto a platform that felt as though it was alive with energy. The air around him would shimmer and pulse, his body becoming weightless, as if the very laws of physics were bending around him. One moment, he was standing in a room at the University of Maryland, and the next, he was miles away, in a location he couldn't quite comprehend. He recalls the feeling of disintegration, as though every cell in his body was being pulled apart and then reassembled in another place, another time. The sensation was disorienting, the world shifting around him like a broken kaleidoscope. In one instance, Basiago claims to have traveled to the future, a future brimming with technology that was beyond anything he had seen in the 1970s. Smartphones, advanced computers, and even the early concepts of the internet. Basiago's accounts of these experiences seem almost too real, as if he's not just recalling events, but reliving them. But Project Pegasus was more than just advanced technology. It was also about people. And the children involved in these experiments weren't just subjects. They were vital components. Basiago speaks of his fellow participants, other children recruited for their perceived adaptability to the experimental nature of the project. These children, their minds still forming, were thought to be the ideal candidates for the kind of high-stress, mind-bending work that Project Pegasus demanded. They were subjected to physical, mental, and emotional stress that many, like Basiago, claim to have never fully recovered from. What makes Basiago's testimony even more chilling is the idea that Project Pegasus wasn't just about advancing technology for the military, it was about shaping the future. The program, according to Basiago, was used to predict and manipulate future events. Knowledge of what was to come was used to influence political decisions, including the selection of future U.S. presidents. Basiago himself suggests that even Barack Obama's political rise may have been influenced by the information gleaned from the time travel experiments. The potential for this technology to manipulate history on a grand scale is terrifying and raises the question, were we ever truly in control of our own future? For Basiago, these experiences have defined his life, but they also have defined the way he sees the world, a world where the lines between reality and fiction blur, where the impossible becomes possible. And the most haunting part of his story? No one has ever truly believed him. The secrecy of Project Pegasus remains locked away, the truth hidden behind layers of obfuscation, while Basiago continues his fight to reveal what was done in the name of national security. As Basiago's testimony unfolds, the depth of his claims becomes ever more profound, revealing a government operation that seems to defy the bounds of logic, time, and reality. Yet, with every word he speaks, the line between truth and myth begins to blur. He claims that his involvement with Project Pegasus wasn't just a few isolated events, but a constant series of manipulations, each more extraordinary than the last. The more Basiago reveals, the more complex the story becomes, a puzzle made of fractured timelines and hidden motives. One of the most chilling parts of Basiago's testimony is the assertion that children were specifically chosen for the project due to their vulnerability, their malleability. He explains that Project Pegasus was, at its core, an experiment not just in technological advancement, but in psychological conditioning. The children, some barely old enough to understand the gravity of their situation, were seen as the ideal candidates for the highly volatile nature of time travel and teleportation. They were exposed to intense psychological pressure, pushed to their limits in a world where the fabric of time and space was pulled apart and reassembled. Basiago recalls his fellow participants, each one carefully selected, but it is the memory of a specific child that lingers in his mind. This child, he explains, was a girl who was physically and emotionally shattered by the experience. The shockwaves of time travel took their toll on the children's minds and bodies, leaving some unable to function in normal society after the program's end. Basiago himself claims that his mind has never fully recovered from the psychological strain. Yet, despite these harrowing accounts, Basiago's assertions are met with skepticism. The idea that children were recruited for time travel experiments seems too fantastical, even for a program as secretive as Project Pegasus. But Basiago, despite the ridicule he faces, remains steadfast in his belief that these events occurred. He insists that the government knew the immense psychological cost of what they were doing, but pressed forward regardless, driven by a sense of purpose and secrecy that overshadowed everything else. Then there's the matter of the technology. The devices used by Project Pegasus were no ordinary machines. According to Basiago, the teleportation devices, capable of sending individuals across vast distances in an instant, were designed to operate based on principles that were far beyond the understanding of the average scientist. These machines, he claims, used frequencies and energy fields that were tapped into the very core of the universe's laws, allowing people to travel across time and space without the restrictions normally placed on such movements. Basiago himself describes the sensation of traveling through time, an experience that can only be likened to disintegration. He says that when he entered the teleportation device, it was as though his entire body was being stretched, torn apart, and then reassembled in a new location. He remembers the disorienting shift in his perception, the sense of vertigo that accompanied each journey. But there was something even more unsettling about the teleportation device. It didn't just transport people across space, It seemed to transport them across dimensions. Some of the locations Basiago claims to have visited were far beyond Earth, vast, alien landscapes that felt foreign and unwelcoming. He recalls his brief glimpses of these places as nothing short of nightmarish. Yet, these otherworldly encounters were not without purpose. According to Basiago, the program wasn't just about traveling to different locations or even different times. It was about gathering intelligence, both from the past and the future. The program's ultimate goal was to manipulate the course of human history, to ensure that the United States would remain the dominant superpower. To achieve this, Basiago claims certain political events were predicted and then manipulated, including the rise of certain political figures who were seen as key to maintaining global control. Basiago himself describes how he was sent into the future, where he allegedly witnessed events that would shape the world for decades to come. These moments, he believes, were pivotal in the shaping of the global political landscape. But perhaps the most shocking part of Basiago's future visits was his alleged encounter with a version of himself, an older, wiser man who seemed to have knowledge of events that had not yet transpired. This encounter, he claims, confirmed to him the reality of time travel and its potential to not only observe history, but influence it. But even as Basiago continues to share his experiences, doubts linger. There's a lingering question at the heart of his testimony. Is this all a fabrication? Could the mind of a child, even one subjected to such extraordinary experiences, have been shaped by imagination, dreams, or even deliberate manipulation? After all, the government's need for secrecy was immense, so much so that it would be easy to dismiss Basiago's claims as the result of a carefully crafted narrative designed to distract or confuse. The real mystery, however, lies not in the technology or the experiences themselves, but in the silence that surrounds them. The U.S. government has never acknowledged the existence of Project Pegasus. The secrecy, the lack of documentation, the absence of corroborating witnesses, all of these factors serve to raise suspicion about the legitimacy of Basiago's claims. But in the void left by official silence, the truth remains hidden, locked behind layers of government secrecy, speculation, and doubt. Analysis of evidence. So, what can we say about the veracity of Andrew Basiago's testimony? The technological claims are staggering and difficult to prove. Verified as true, Basiago's background and connections to the government are well documented, but the specifics of the technology, the time travel, and the experiences he describes remain largely unverified. Much of what Basiago claims aligns with ideas presented by other whistleblowers and conspiracy theorists, but the lack of physical evidence and corroboration casts doubt. The fact that Project Pegasus is unacknowledged by any official sources only adds to the mystery, leaving us with a tantalizing question. Was Andrew Basiago part of a real government experiment, or is this the product of a deeply ingrained belief in conspiracy?